Good afternoon, Flosstube. It's Caroline of Caroline's Corner. I'm in Leeds in West Yorkshire. It's Sunday the 9th of February. We're being a bit battered by a storm at the moment, but there seems to be a lull in it, so hopefully I can get this recorded while the sun is still out and the wind has stopped blowing. Welcome to my 9th Flosstube video. I will run through what I've got done in January and talk a little bit about some pieces I've done along a few years ago. You'll be able to find show notes for this episode on my blog, which is carolinescorner.blogspot.com. Caroline is spelt with a K. And I can also be found mostly on Twitter or Instagram as @Caroline A. Kemp, and Carol, as I said before, Caroline is spelt with a K. So welcome back if you're a returning viewer. If you've subscribed to the episode, thank you very much. I very much appreciate all the likes and comments. If you're new here, I hope you like what you see and you hang around for a bit. Please hit the subscribe button if you like it and come back again. Anyway, so on to what I got done in January rather. Wishing my life away at the moment. It's been one of those weeks. I didn't get anything finished, which will come as no surprise to any of you who've seen my previous videos, because you know the pieces I'm working on. However, I did get a couple of the little finishes from the end of last year FFO'd. So the first one I got done was Tiny Tweel Heart by Just Nan. This was a market exclusive from about 2002, I think, and the chart came with the floss and the crystal charm. So as you see, I decided to frame this. I got these little frames from a local supermarket and they were just the right size. One of them was just the right size for this piece. Very pleased, very quick finish, which is nice and gets it off the pile quickly. And it's going to be part of my spring display, being a very sort of springy, but it also covers Valentine's Day with it being a heart. So there we go. Very glad to have got that done. The other finished objects I have were the Jackie du Plessis fobs. I was lucky enough to take a class with Jackie back a couple of years, 3 years ago now, in Oxfordshire, and it was summer garden, and she gave us this little kit for a scissor fob and a floss ring as gifts at the class. It came with the banding and the thread, which I think is water lilies, cherry cordial. It certainly matches the cherry cordial that I've already got in my floss, in my stash rather. So I'm very pleased also to get these finished and get them in my smalls display. I put them on some pink scissors that I got many years ago when I was in a charity stitch along group that Elegant Stitch ran. I think this is by Indigo Rose. In fact, I'm fairly sure it's by Indigo Rose because it's very much in her style. And I can't remember when I stitched that, quite a long time ago, when the kits came out. They were called Essie's Friends. So those two are fully finished and off the pile and can be used. So onto my whips. First one, of course, is Dorothy Walpole. Made some quite good progress on Dorothy in January. as I keep saying, she's a very, very big girl, is Dorothy. I started on this flower spray here, so I finished the satin stitched flowers, got a couple of leaves in and a bit more, and when I was last picked her up I was working on this larger flower down here. Moving quite reasonably well at the moment. I have lean back and see if I can get her all of her in at the moment. There we go. I'm stitching her on 40 count Lakeside linen in pearlized barley. This is on an Italian linen that I acquired at some point. I don't remember when. It's from very, very deep stash. And I'm stitching her with the DMC, because when I started I wasn't in a position to be able to afford to buy the silks, but I'm very happy with how it's looking in the DMC. Next time she's due up in my rotation, it will be half-term week, so I'm actually hoping I can make when it's the holidays and I'm not at work, I get so much more stitching time, so I'm hoping I can get that spray of flowers finished, because I've got, see, I'm stitching that one at the moment. There's another little bit that comes, blue flower that comes down, and when I finish that I'm going to go and do the border all the way down to the corner, so I don't have it all to do at the end. Next up, I'm a bit further forward on An Emblem of Love by With Thy Needle, Ellen Chester. As I mentioned in my previous videos, it's my silver wedding this year, and this is the sampler I've decided to commemorate that with. Since you last saw it, I finished the big tree motif down the bottom, put a couple of the smaller ones in, and I'm working over on this side motif. I'll be back to this one tonight, so I'm hoping I'll get this finished, and then there's a lot of little motifs that go all around, and I think I'll probably aim to get all them in, and then this time around. Very pleased with how that's looking. I'm stitching this on 32 count vintage Luna from Lakeside Linens, which is again from very deep stash. All my linen stash has been there for quite some time, and I'm using hand dyed fibres by Vicky Clayton, which aren't available anymore. Vicky has now stopped dyeing, but I was gifted the Silk Comfort set kit to do this chart several years ago, a good number of years ago. Unfortunately, I'm not following the law as laid down by Brenda in the Serial Starter, because I don't have a fob on my floss rings. They're a little harder to get hold of in the UK. Are you coming to say hello?
I'm just getting some paper.
Okay. Sorry, I've had a small boy invade the room. Think he's going to do some homework, are you? Right. Any exit stage left. So very much enjoying stitching with these silks, and enjoying the nice muted colours that Vicky used in her conversion. The last whip I've worked on this month is my Scottish sampler, and I'm very pleased with the progress I've made on this one, because I have that big black work band all done and I am on to the bottom band. So give it a month or 2 or 3 and I should have this one finished, which is going to be good. I started it back in 2008 when my daughter was a baby. She is now at high school. I'm not quite sure about the colours on this very funky peacock down the bottom. The chart is in the cover of the Goodheart sampler book from Needleprint, which is now sadly out of print. I don't have a picture of the reproduction, but here is a picture of the original sampler, and as you can see, they've charted the colours that are on the front of the sampler. I don't know if the orange peacock is because a thread has degraded so much over the years. It would be interesting to see what the colours are on the back of it as well, because I suspect they're quite a bit more vibrant in places. So yeah, so I don't have too much more to go. I'm on the cat at the moment. There's just a handful, so if I can get a section done, I should be done by hopefully Mania, but we'll see. It would be nice to get that one done and off the whip pile. It's been there a long time, as I said. So this is being stitched on, I got the kit for this because I went to the second Aqua Sampler Symposium where the Goodheart book was launched and got given the kit for this sampler then. This was in 2008, and it's on lamb's wool linen, and the threads are all needle point ink silk. The sampler is actually chartered for Pearsall's silks, which again are no longer available anymore. I don't think. Certainly I don't see them around. These are, but you know, I like stitching needle point ink silk, and they were very generous with the amount of silk they gave us in the kit. So I did have a 1st of February start. It was also the one piece of stash I bought in January, and that stash was the Jane Marshall charity sampler that Hands Across the Sea released. So I was idly kitting it up and seeing what I'd got in my stash that I could stitch it with. I wondered if I might have some of the called for Avoyer Soie silks. I had a handful of colours, so I was sort of pulling the DMC to see what they look like, and then thought, oh, I wonder if I've got colours, these sort of colours in other silk collections I've got. And what I found was I had them all in my collection of Gloriana silks. So I've kitted it up with as near as I can Gloriana silk, sorry, they're all in thread bags, and which are as near to the DMC as I could do. And I've made a little start on the sampler. I was just working, it's a long tail because at that point I would have had to move the Q-snap and I didn't fancy doing it at that time. I'm stitching this on a piece of 32 count Days Gone By even weave from Silkweaver, again from deep stash. Well, all my fabric is in deep stash because I haven't bought fabric for years. I haven't needed to. So I'm using Holiday Blue as the dark blue, Hydrangea is the light blue, and the pink is Antique Pink, and they are all Gloriana silks. And of course, absolutely gorgeous to stitch with. Quite enjoyed that little section. It's going to go away on the whip pile now and await its turn to come up in my rotation. So that's what I got stitched last month. So I'm going to pause the video now and get my knitting together. Right, Before we move on to the knitting, I thought I was about to change some stuff on the walls round for the season, and I thought I'd share some of it with you, and then thought I would then share everything I've stitched by that particular designer. The designer in question is Indigo Rose, and I was about to put up the True Love sampler, which I stitched back in 2003 for sort of Valentine's. Sorry about the glare. Got big Velux windows up here in the attic. Absolutely loved stitching this sampler. It was the first time I'd stitched an Indigo Rose design. Quite simple really, it only uses 6 colours. 3 greens, 3 pinks. Was it 2 greens and 4 pinks? Can't remember. 3 pinks, I think. Yeah. And as I was getting this one out, I don't know how easy it is to find any Indigo Rose stuff anymore. I don't think Catherine is designing anymore. For those of you who've been around for a while, you'll know I started the Skylar Wayne sampler at Mania last year, and when I finished Dorothy Walpole and a couple of other things, then Skylar Wayne will be going in that slot in my rotation. I haven't stitched any other of Catherine's samplers, but I have stitched a few of her smalls. Start with this one. This was called Little Friends. It's a little needle case. The side has the paw print. Feeling it was a limited edition kit that was done for one of the markets. Very cute, very quick to stitch and quick to finish as well. Another one that I also know was a limited edition market release is this one, which is called Nantucket Pincushion, in a little Nantucket basket. Again, very quick and easy finish. So a couple of her biscornus. This one's called the Bee Charmer. Lovely to stitch, all stitched in Karen Water Lilies, this one. Nice, generous biscornu. There's the bee charm in the middle. And another much smaller biscornu this time. This was called Pretty in Pink. This was another breast cancer fundraiser. And again, stitched with water lilies. Catherine does use them quite a lot in her designs. It's quite fun, and it's on this little stand. A lot of these are going to be going out as my spring. I decorate for spring. And lastly, there's a little needle case and scissor fob. These were a set called Victorian Elegance. There we go. And these were stitched back in 2007. I have loads of Indigo Rose charts to do. I did get a comment on my last video that says I should do a stash flash, but if I did a stash flash we'd be here for hours and hours. I do have quite a large stash, but most of it predates 2008 when I had my daughter, because life before children, obviously I had the money to spend on stash that I don't have anymore. So yes, I thought I'd share those. I do like stitching Indigo Rose. A bit of a flying visit. I shall pull off some of the other designers and probably go through some of these on the back wall at some point. Then knitting. Very pleased with the progress I've made in my knitting in January. First up is the floating shawl. This is by Helen Stewart of Curious Handmade. This was from the Shawl Society last year. Helen has said this year she's not doing another Shawl Society, which is good because that gives me a chance to catch up with some of the other ones. Having got all 4 seasons of the Shawl Society there and only stitched. I think I've stitched 1 shawl from every season. I think the only one I've done 2 shawls from was number 1. I think I've done the first 2 shawls from that, so I need to get cracking. So on this one I'm on the border. I have finished the lace border. I'm onto the garter, it's the wrong way around, show you the back there. I'm onto the garter stitch edging, give you a better idea of the lace. Most of the body is garter stitch. It's a half pie shawl, so there are regular increases. I'm at about 500 stitches at the moment on the needle. So I've another few rows of garter stitch and a picot edging. So hopefully I will have a finished object by the time I record again. Whether it be blocked, I can't guarantee. Blocking it's very unusual. I go around to blocking stuff straight away. It tends to go and sit there for a little while until I've got the space to get the things out to block. I am knitting this one in Giddy Yarns, Giddy Sock in the High Tide colourway. I bought this at the Leeds Wool Fair last year. Very pleased with how that's knitting up. Suits this shawl hugely, and it's knit on I'm knitting this on 4mm. I'm using my Knit Pro Zing, using Knit Pro Zing for this one. Okay. So yeah, so hopefully by the time I record next, this one will be finished. There was no progress on my sock because I'm not doing the swimming lessons at the moment. My husband's doing those, so when I finish the shawl I will pick the socks back up and try and finish off the first sock at least. What I've also been working on is the Sinister Cardigan for my daughter. She keeps monitoring progress every time I pick it up. Last time you saw this, I had just finished the yoke, and now I have a fair chunk of the body done, ably helped by going around to a friend's when I first started it in on the body, chatting with. It's a great project for when you're chatting with friends because you can just knit and knit and knit and knit. I'm about halfway down the body, and that's after just a couple of sessions of working on it, so really pleased with the progress on that one. And so my daughter is monitoring progress with great enthusiasm, so I need to crack on and get it done. I'm knitting this in Kinross 4-ply from Wee Country Yarns. I picked this up at Yarndale this year. Rosie chose the colours. She wanted her cardigan to look like the one on the cover, so hence the pink is orchid, the white is quartz, and the grey is granite, and it's looking lovely, and the yarn is absolutely gorgeous to knit with. And the needles I'm using to get gauge on this are 2.75 Knit Pro Classics. I think the Classics, isn't it? Just the basic wood ones. There we go. So that's my knitting. Like I said, no progress on the sock. I will pick that back up once I have finished my shawl and get the first sock knit, and then I might put them back down again and then knit another shawl whichever one I decide to pull out. The other thing which I made real progress on this month was I have finished the quilting on my son's quilt and got it trimmed and ready for the binding. So that's a half-term project, is starting the binding. There's all shades of blue and green that he picked out himself, and as far as the quilting went, I just quilted across in more or less straight lines. Quilting still needs a bit of work, as you can see, at roughly 5 centimetre intervals, just to give it a bit of texture. And he's quite pleased with this, and all I get is nattering about when's it going to be finished. So again, say half-term project. I will got the material for the binding. We got it when we got the backing fabric, so I shall crack on with that and hopefully very least have the binding attached, even if I've not finished hand sewing it down by next month. That's my goal for next month, is to attach the binding to this one. A few goals for February. One is finish the floating cardigan, the floating shawl rather, get the binding at least attached to half attached to the quilt, and then I will hand bind the front, and make progress on my other whips. Hopefully finish that flower on Dorothy and the border, and get across the Adam and Eve on my Scottish sampler, and then see how far I get on the Emblem of Love. I shall be starting another piece on the 1st of March. I'm not sure what else. I've got a list somewhere that I decided at the beginning of the year. Other than that, well, I hope it's been a bit of a whistle-stop tour. It's amazing how quickly you can get through it when you record somewhat regularly and don't leave it for months. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for watching. I'm hoping all of us in the UK that the storm passes through without any major damage, and I'll see you again in March. So thank you for watching.